On this SEGA Talk, we're talking about Sonic the Hedgehog comic books, again. Specifically, the mainline Archie Comics series. We are spending this SEGA Talk discussing issues 39 to 79, which spans Ken Penders' debut, the Endgame issue 50 event, and the lead-up to the Sonic Adventure adaptation, which means we learn how Sonic gets his green eyes. All that and more on SEGA Talk. SEGA Bits presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello and welcome to episode number 169 of SEGA Talk. You're supposed to say nice. Nice.
I did it.
On this episode, we, as I mentioned at the top of the show, are going to be discussing Archie Sonic comics again. But before we do that, I should introduce myself. I'm Barry. With me is George.
Hello, everyone.
We usually have something. I didn't think of this one. The Ken to my Penders.
Yeah, that would work. I was going to say...
Maybe.
Yeah. Who's the artist that he worked with the most?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think on the Knuckles series, he worked with a similar artist a lot. But honestly, I think Ken's favorite artist is himself.
Well, he is the best.
He's one of those guys where it's like he should stick to writing. Like, he wants to do everything, but he is not a great artist.
100% agree.
But
with that one.
if you, I don't have a segue for that either. Man, I'm not batting 100 tonight, but. We are on Patreon, guys, and before we recorded, I mentioned to George that we're going to have some changes coming to our Patreon page. Nothing crazy, but we are going to give it a fresh lick of paint. It's going to become the SEGA Bits Presents SEGA Talk Patreon. It's still going to be at patreon.com/SegaBits. It's still going to be the same sort of hub, but it's going to be for SEGA Talk, because I think when we started it, I was like, posting news stories from the website. I was posting other podcasts we do, and then I kind of stopped doing that because I realized it's really mainly the place for this show, and I'm totally cool with that. So if you want to check us out, by the time this goes out to the public, we'll definitely have that there. There's going to be some tweaks to the tiers, and unlike the PlayStation 5, prices are not going up, folks. We might have some prices go down, or we might have lower tiers get some stuff that they didn't get before. So look out for that. But let's get into the show.
Go ahead. Too, before, if you guys have any ideas, for tiers or anything else, you guys could always email us, obviously, at segabits@gmail.com. And we obviously are very receptive to any feedback. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. So this is our Archie Sonic episode, and we did do one of these. In fact, we discussed the mini-series and issues 0 through 38 way back during episode 72. So here we are, like nearly 100 episodes later, and we're finally returning to the mainline series to take a breezy look at another 40 issues. And the reason it kind of came to my mind to do this is because the IDW Sonic comics actually just hit issue 80, I think.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow. So here I was feeling like we've really, kind of like been dragging our feet on returning to Archie Sonic. But I think as long as we keep up with the IDW numbering, we're good. And I feel like the next batch of comics are gonna be like I said, a breezy look. We're not gonna go issue by issue. We're gonna kind of look at them in kind of arcs. Even though some of them don't have arcs, a lot of fans have taken these issues and they've seen kind of like a similar story running through them, or something that happens in one issue and then it's finally resolved like 10 issues later. And honestly, I think that's gonna make covering a lot of these a lot easier, because starting with these issues, they really moved out of the kiddie comic issue by issue storytelling. They did dip their toes in some episodic stuff where it would be like, or not episodic. I guess it is episodic, right? Like where it's like you get a part one and then the next issue gives you a little more of that story. And that's a lot different from the early Sonic issues where it was basically like, Sonic loses his shoes and then the next issue is like Tails has an ice cream stand. Like they didn't get that kiddie, but it got close. And I think a major reason for that is because Ken Penders actually really came out of his shell. So Ken Penders himself, he was actually around for a while with the comics, but it wasn't until issue, I believe, 41 that he left his co-writer Mike Kanturkovich behind. I don't know why they had a split. Maybe Mike went to another job, but Ken started doing his solo writing with issue 41, and that's when he really started to showcase what he was capable of. And we're not going to talk about it on this one, but he also did a Knuckles spin-off series that started to release around this time that as a kid I thought was better than the Sonic ones. I don't know why I did. I think it was the mix of these like four issue arcs, or they were doing 3-issue arcs, and the covers would connect together. And the artist who worked on them did a great job. And I think just exploring Knuckles and the floating island and all that was really exciting at the time. So to me, I just saw that as a better comic than the Sonic ones at the time, which eventually, spoiler alert, killed off Robotnik. And so it's like, well, what do I want? Do I want Knuckles on his island and learning about this new character, or do I want Sonic minus his greatest villain? It was kind of, I don't know. So suffice to say, I actually had thought pretty highly of Ken Penders at the time. When I saw his name, I thought that meant a little more grown-up quality to the storytelling, a little more depth to the storytelling, a greater focus on continuity. Like he would bring back characters from like 2 years ago, and you'd be like, oh, it's that guy, he's back, and he like actually means something to the story again. And again, that's something Ian Flynn did decades later, but even so, Ken kind of was the first. And so on this episode, I don't want to shit talk Ken. I want this episode to be like the Ken of that era, who actually did do some good in the comics and tried his best and didn't anger fans, at least to my knowledge. I don't know, but having said all that,
go on.
Yeah, do you have any Penders thoughts?
I think I didn't really know the comic that much growing up. It wasn't part of my growing up, so to me, I didn't really have an opinion outside of when I heard about the whole like movie thing. I mean, it wasn't even the movie. There's been, I think, even since I first started coming on the internet, negative Ken Penders stories just circulating in the fan base. I can't even pinpoint what it was, but I think since I can remember, and the more that comes out, the more you're like, oh my God, this guy ruined this. But we'll pretend we don't know about that. And we'll just talk about him as an artist. He did, if you think about it in the long term, kids are more invested in a story that they have to buy multiple months. So then I'm pretty sure sales went up because he changed the format. Instead of getting one issue and you already had a whole story, you don't have to go buy another issue to feel like you need it completed.
And
he also added a lot of lore, even if it's not canon now. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was a big collector of licensed comics at the time. I had the DuckTales, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, like any cartoon that I enjoyed as a kid, I would pick up the comics and collect them. The Simpsons. And outside of The Simpsons, all of those kind of like ended rather quickly. I think Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers actually made it the longest with like maybe 30 or so issues. But think of that, like around this time that we're talking about, a lot of licensed comics are already done and gone. They maybe make it to 20 issues, 30 issues, and then fold just because, the cartoon ended and they moved on or something. And it's really actually kind of shocking that this comic book series that really was built off of two cartoons kind of melding together kept going when the cartoons ended. And I know people who are big Sat AM fans or Saturday morning Sonic fans will point to this and be like, this is not a continuation, it's its own thing. And I'm like, yeah, it is, but it really kept that world alive, even if the comics kind of went off in their own direction. And I really truly think too that you could look at the Saturday morning cartoon and just see it as other stories that didn't get told in the comics, because there was a time when the comics were telling stories and all the same characters, like all the pieces were on the chessboard in the same way, so I think that what people looked at was, once the cartoon ended, they did have a season 3 planned that went in a different direction from the comics. But in the end of the day, the comics outlived the TV series, and for a lot of fans like myself, like, they saw that as the story continuing in the comics.
I would even say,
I think
I was gonna say it's even bigger though, because the show, it wasn't just. They had two spin-offs that I know of, at least. They had the Knuckles one and Sonic Universe, or were those in two different eras?
Well, yeah. So it had the Knuckles one. It had the super specials, which were like every issue was like a 48-page special, number 1. And then they started doing actually numbered super specials. So it'd be like super special number 2, 3, 4. But they would do one-shots. They would do miniseries. Tails had one. Princess Sally had one. Sonic 3 and... was it Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I think? The Death Egg Saga, that had one. So, even though the main series made it to, I think it was issue 290, wow, there's probably another, and I'm not joking, like 100 issues. Like, that's a lot. I'll have to look up the actual number, because it's probably staggering. And I would be shocked if IDW makes it that far, to be quite honest. I'm actually surprised IDW doesn't reboot, and go back to issue 1 after issue 100. That's actually something that's been annoying me with the Marvel Star Wars comics, is they'll get to issue like 25 or 50 and then they go back to number 1. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they've been doing that for like 5 years, I think, with like all their issues, like even Wolverine and like, because I think I was picking up Silver Surfer, and they rebooted it like 2 times randomly in the middle of an arc too.
But often it's not even. Sometimes it's not even a reboot. It's like the story continues, but it's issue 1, and it's like.
Right.
But having said all this, so I think without Ken, I don't know if the Sonic comics would have continued. They might have fizzled out. They might have just had no ending. They would have just. There would have been another issue, and that actually has happened with some other Archie SEGA comics. But we're not talking about those. We are talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. So let's jump right in. Let's take a look at issues number 39 and 40, if you want to bring them up on that beautiful screen of ours, and we can take a look at that beautiful cover art. I love this cover. The Mecha Madness starts here, as well as the next one with Sonic hanging off of Knack, he's called in the comics. Interestingly enough, they just released his the Marvelous Queen. That's what he calls like the little vehicle that Fang rides around, and they just made a toy of that. Isn't that funny?
I was going to ask what it was called, and I guess it does have a name.
It's called the Marvelous Queen, and I think the reasoning for that is Sonic Team at the time had a Star Wars obsession, so it's like the Millennium Falcon, the Marvelous Queen. Like, they wanted something that kind of name.
Sounds like a pirate ship.
But in any case, it is kind of like a pirate ship. Issue 39. So this kicks off Mecha Madness. And this is a story that spans the main series, several mini-series, one-shots. It's much longer than 2 issues. Elements of the storyline actually began as far back as issue 25.
Wow.
I mean, that's when Metal Sonic was making his debut. We also had characters like Princess Sally, who got roboticized. I wasn't going to bring it out just yet, but I have some original art from the series here, and I think I have, here it is. The first time we had Mecha Sally. Let me see if I can bring this up on the screen. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
So that's the original art. That's the first time. So they were laying the foundation for these, characters that would get roboticized. We had it happen to Uncle Chuck. And it was soon going to happen to Sonic, and eventually it did. He got roboticized, a word I can say but never spell. And this issue 39, actually crossed over into Knuckles number 4. And the story behind the whole arc was that Sonic has himself captured and roboticized by Dr. Robotnik, and he becomes the unstoppable Mecha Sonic. The Freedom Fighters scramble to save him, but Robotnik's new weapon is faster and stronger than anything they faced. So Knuckles realizes the only way to stop Sonic is to also have himself roboticized. So it ends with this special issue they had called Mecha Sonic versus Mecha Knuckles, and it was pretty epic, the Mecha Madness arc. And for me, it's just what makes it stand out is that's what it is. It's a robot brawl. It's Sonic versus Knuckles. It's Robotnik. It's the Freedom Fighters kind of pushed to the side, so it's really a Sonic and Knuckles story. And yeah, it's fun. I don't know. It in my opinion, it's kind of the last fun story before Ken Penders really started to take control. What are your thoughts about this little arc? Does that sound fun to you?
I actually think that's actually really cool. Is this the one that had the first one issue called Rage Against the Machines? I think based on the
there
band.
was a Mecha. There was Mecha Madness, which was a one shot, and so you would read the Sonic issue, the Knuckles issue, and then the story would kind of conclude in Mecha Madness. And it has this epic cover where Sonic's fixing his glove. It has all the characters kind of throughout. Eggman is shown in fire, and then Mecha Knuckles is punching Mecha Sonic. It's pretty epic. It's pretty cool.
I like the idea of Sonic finally obviously when you read the issue and he turns into a robot, you're Sonic's lost, right? Isn't that kind of the worst nightmare for Sonic when you play the games that he's liberating all these animals? Why wouldn't him becoming? I don't know. It's weird. I feel weird about it. That's all I got to say. Yeah, it is weird. It's worth noting too that in the games, Robotnik was literally putting them inside the animals, or putting the animals inside the badniks, and you actually see him do this physically. I think it's a very rare time when you see him do it in the games in Sonic Lost World. Remember that? He has that conveyor belt, and he's plopping them in, and they get closed up. And then in Sonic Adventure as well, the Flicky was inside of E102. But in the comics and in the Saturday morning show, it was physically turned into a robot. They weren't inside of it. It's not like Sonic could like jump on his Uncle Chuck and then his Uncle Chuck would like come out and be like, "Oh, Sonic, you spent 2 seasons of a cartoon and like 50 issues of a comic book, and you could have done that this whole time." But yeah, it's a fun arc. And then issue 40 sees Sonic on trial for the events of Mecha Madness. I don't know why. Like, I was turned into a robot, and they're like, "You're under arrest for the actions of you as a robot." Does he win the case?
Well, here's spoiler alert: he does. But there are various twists and turns. There's also cameos from the Kangaroos Hip and Hop, who were in Sonic Spinball, weirdly enough, as well as Knack the Weasel from Triple Trouble. So there's a lot of like deep cut characters coming into play. And it's all fun until the next arc, which is Endgame. And before we dive into Endgame, I just want to talk a little bit more about Ken Penders, specifically pre-Sonic Ken Penders. So Before he set his foot into the world of Sonic, Ken Penders was working in indie comics and storyboarding. In the 80s, he contributed to Eclipse Comics titles like the DN Agents, which is a great name, and Grimjack. Have you heard of those? I haven't.
No, never.
I like DN Agents, though. That's pretty good. He also developed his own sci-fi and superhero concepts and did storyboard work, sharpening his sense for visual storytelling. In the early 90s, he was freelancing when Archie tapped him for Sonic the Hedgehog, and he brought in the indie comics world-building mindset, shifting the series from light gags to big serialized drama that would define the book for years. So yeah, I mean, with that background, I feel like he is the right person for it, though my fear is always that Sonic, and I guess any franchise really that's like a long-going licensed franchise, brings a creative in who doesn't look to the past of the series, but instead looks to their own portfolio, and they're like, I'm never going to be able to make that, like that comic I've always wanted to make, so I'm just going to take those ideas and turn Sonic into what I wanted to do. And that, we're not going to get into it, but that's pretty much the path Ken went down, and now he's making this like absolutely awful spin-off of like Knuckles' cousin like 40 years later or whatever, you know what I mean, with Laura Sue. And it's just like, I think a lot of the reason a lot of people don't like Ken is that much later in the Sonic run, he started to really make it less about Sonic and more about, like, I have an outlet for my own ideas, and I'm going to push the video game stuff to the side and instead really get weird with it. And that's really why I got so excited when Ian Flynn came on, and later on, because you would be reading a Sonic comic, and the excitement would be that they would bring back plots and characters from games you remember, not like Ken Penders bringing in weird Knuckles lore about his cousin, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I
With
would
that
say,
in mind,
what
do you
about
think?
about his background, he obviously did kind of like edgy, it sounds like, Grimjack comics.
Yeah.
So I think that it's, I would, I mean, if it was a fan of the game at this moment, that was which there weren't that many adults that would probably be a big fan of Sonic because they didn't grow up with it, since it's like a few years old at this point. I think Ian Flynn is perfect, but he couldn't be like created until like he grew up with Sonic Media for so long that he became obviously the perfect writer, because he understood what worked and what didn't, because he was a critique. He critiqued it himself as a kid, so he grew up with it. And Ken Penders, I mean, somebody that first, like, I mean, you know, like Mickey Mouse, the first guy to, or like the guy that wrote the Donald Duck comics. He did the same thing,
Carl
right?
Barks.
You're right. He would go and study and do stuff, and then he's all that's interesting when he would read things, and then he would put it into the comic, and it made them interesting. So I think that could work. Obviously, when you go too far off the deep end, like some people call Ken Penders, it doesn't. But I think when it worked for him, it worked. Like it could have been, he'd made some fun issues. Just
for
obviously.
Sure.
Shouldn't have gone so far into the Knuckles family, which is weird.
Right, and I think too he later on started to like do World War II allegories and like the Holocaust, and he would like casually say, "Oh yeah, there's incest going on in the Knuckles line." And it's like, wow,
why do you say
okay.
that?
Right. Meanwhile, I feel like, and I don't want to turn this into an Ian Flynn versus Ken Penders episode, but meanwhile, I feel like Ian Flynn would be like, "Oh, I looked at an old translation of a Mega Drive manual, and they mentioned this, so I thought it would be fun to bring it into the comics." You know, like that's what he would do. And Ken Penders would be like, "I went to the Holocaust Museum, and I want to bring that into this." And it's like, I think this is the wrong place for it.
I agree.
Having said that, let's talk about his, I think, magnum opus. So on this stretch of Archie Sonic, issues 41 through 50, the comic really starts leaning into big, sweeping arcs that shape the series for years. So after Mecha Madness, we see Sonic and the Freedom Fighters continuing their push against Robotnik, While tensions within the team bubble to the surface, there are one-off adventures like Sonic tangling with Knack the Weasel. There's a few lighthearted detours with Tails and Antoine Decollette, and some Knuckles crossovers that expand the lore around the floating island and the echidnas. And at the same time, the book starts laying the seeds for bigger conflicts, showing Robotnik's empire being not as invincible as it once was, but still dangerous enough to keep Mobius under threat. And then we hit milestone issue number 50, Endgame. And that pulls out all the stops. We have Robotnik launching one of his deadliest plans yet, which is framing Sonic for the attempted assassination of Princess Sally and driving a wedge between him and the Freedom Fighters. And what follows is a tense, dark story that pushes Sonic to its limits, forcing him to clear his name while facing betrayal, loss, and Robotnik's final gambit. And the massive payoff is that Robotnik is destroyed once and for all, making way for a new era in the series. And, for longtime readers, it really, like myself, it felt like Archie Sonic was finally growing up. It was actually kind of shocking to be like, oh, okay, 50 issues and we defeated him. It actually kind of gave some closure to something that was happening as early as, maybe not the video games, but definitely the Saturday morning cartoon. Because this did well and truly kill off that Saturday morning Robotnik. Did you remember any of this, either as it was being released or maybe years down the line, hearing people talk about how epic this was?
I actually do not. That's the thing. I just don't have my past with it. I was just going to make a mention, though, of the 50th issue. The top right left-hand corner, it has like the Sonic from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but it's just Sonic. It's like blue instead of the red, right? That's weird.
Oh,
the little logo.
That.
You know what I'm talking about? The 50th.
Oh, yeah.
The little emblem.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah, but regardless, the in-game, I think it's cool that they do stuff like this when they change tone, but I don't know if, like, how do you feel about, you said it was epic, right? The in-game, right? Did you like the idea of, like, this fresh start? I'm assuming this was supposed to be some sort of, like, jumping on point for new readers, too, right? Like,
yeah, I think personally that Ken Penders probably was getting tired of every issue being like, what's Robotnik's plan this time? Will we stop him? Of course we will. I think he was like, well, this is based on a Saturday morning cartoon, but I want to move this beyond Saturday morning villains. You know what I mean? Where it's like, there is, like, people will die. You can actually kill Robotnik, unlike the video games. He doesn't come back. And, I mean, it's entirely likely, too, that with the Sonic movies coming out, that Robotnik's dead in those. If Jim Carrey doesn't come back, that might have been the second time in any continuity that they well and truly killed off that Robotnik. The guy who was being covered for 50 issues and was, the villain that you thought could never be defeated. And you did mention issue 50 of that. That was a gold cover. It was issue 25 was Sonic CD's adaptation. That was silver. This one was gold. So it was definitely epic. And I remember going to, I don't have it on me, but I went to comic conventions and I met Andrew Pepoy, who did the inks for it.
Wow. And
I met Art Moheni, who did. What did he do? I think he did art for it. And so they both signed my issue. I still have that issue. And I actually bought... I didn't get Ken Penders. I should get Ken Penders to sign it. I'd like to meet him, but he never does Midwest conventions. He's always in California. And what's so funny is people I know who go to these... What's that?
I said it's a great state. What's wrong with it? The weather's good, I guess, and we have earthquakes.
Well, yeah, but you'd think he'd travel a bit more because he's doing this Laura Sue Chronicles, but... It's funny because I'll talk to people that we know who go to Comic-Con and they're like taking pictures far away going, there's Ken Penders. And I'm thinking, just walk up to him. He's not going to bite. I will say this about Ken Penders. He has not been canceled. He's not like a skeevy guy. He's not a dirty guy. He hasn't done anything evil. He's just written some bad Sonic comics and made some questionable choices with characters in fiction. You know what I mean? But it's like no one's saying, "Oh, George R.R. Martin's a dangerous guy because he had 2 siblings, having sex." It's like, "Oh, so George R.R. Martin gets a pass, but Ken Penders doesn't." It's like
I don't think he's an evil guy. But I will say, the Endgame here is more successful than Marvel's Endgame, because when Endgame finished for Marvel, like, the franchise kind of like hasn't reached the heights that Endgame was. I would say
that's true.
Sonic Archie after this, regardless of what your opinion is on Ken Penders, actually did get more popular. So
it did. I mean, I think Endgame definitely was a shot in the arm for the franchise. I also think it showed that anything could happen, because if they can kill off Robotnik, then who else is next? I mean, maybe they can't kill off Sonic, but I mean, no. Robotnik is number 2 to Sonic when it comes to, like, debut 1991. It's Sonic's game and it's Robotnik's game. But I did want to showcase a little more original art I bought. I bought these way back in the day, probably around when issue 50, maybe shortly after issue 50 released. So I wanted to showcase this. This is some original art I bought. And this is from issue number 47, The Trial of Sonic the Hedgehog. And what I love about this is it shows just about every major character there at Sonic's trial. I also have, and this was hard to get because at the time they were selling out really fast, but it's a page from issue 50. It's not my favorite page, but, just to have a page
just a
from
bunch
that
of
milestone issue.
Fit robots, moving boxes.
Yeah, so this one is Antoine and Bunny spying on Robotnik, pretty much. Nothing too exciting, but it is pretty cool. So, I mean, at the time, here I am as a little kid getting my issue 50 autographed and buying original art from these iconic, at the time, issues. So it was an event. It was exciting as a fan to have something going on. And I should mention, as we go through these issues, this was the Sega Saturn era. So Sonic's Genesis days were kind of at an end. There wasn't anything new coming out. So I kind of don't fault Ken Penders for doing what he had to do for these issues we're going to talk about, because he didn't have anything, really. There were no adaptations. Imagine taking control of this Sonic the Hedgehog comic book and, what has released? 3D Blast, and then you hear internally that Sonic Adventure is coming in, like, 3 years, so you don't have anything to adapt. So it's like, yeah, sure, kill off Eggman, or Robotnik, which, to be honest, this is an old design that by this time was kind of outdated. I know people bemoan the fact that Princess Sally and the Freedom Fighters are no longer around, but as I've said before on other podcasts and on this one, like, be happy that Princess Sally existed for that long. It's kind of wild that a character from a 1993 Saturday morning cartoon was relevant as of, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. And I think she's going to be in a mobile game pretty soon, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like she's completely gone. But going back to these show notes, so let's jump into the post-Endgame stories. So issues 51 through 56, on the heels of Endgame, it really felt like the comic taking a breather and charting new territory. Robotnik was gone. The Freedom Fighters were suddenly dealing with a Mobius that isn't under constant siege, which meant a lot more character-driven stories. We see Sonic adjusting to life without Robotnik. We see Tails getting more time kind of on solo missions. Knuckles is off doing his own thing in his miniseries, but he does jump back in once in a while for crossovers. We get the Chaotix that's going on right now. There are also a lot of lighter, almost experimental issues during this run, like time travel, slice of life moments. So if issue 51, that's when we see the victory celebration following Robotnik's demise. with, of course, one final posthumous attack from Robotnik beyond the grave. Issue 52 gets really weird with a black and white noir-style story of Sonic entering a 1930s style zone, which kind of reminds me of like the holodeck episodes of Star Trek, where it's like, oh, today Data's Sherlock Holmes.
I will say though, I don't think they've done a like black and white level in Sonic, have they?
No, they haven't. They should. That would be cool. Yeah. Like Kingdom Hearts with Timeless River. I like that. That was cool.
Yeah.
And then issue 53, so this is where it gets kind of relevant for what we're talking about. It sets up the new big bad as Ixis Naugus and his followers Kodos Lion and Uma Arcanis, who escaped from the Zone of Silence. And then issue 54 sees Robotnik's nephew Snively seeking some power and tracking down Ixis Naugus, which will become a larger story arc soon. Issue 55 sees the debut of Monkey Kong. Monkey Khan. I'm going to sneeze.
Not Donkey Kong.
I think I sneeze every time I say Monkey Khan. A friendly rival to Sonic. Monkey Khan was a cybernetically enhanced monkey warrior originally created by Dr. Robotnik to serve as a weapon. After breaking free, he became a wandering hero and eventually the leader of Dragon Kingdom, and even shares a brief romance with Sally Acorn.
Whoa.
And I was looking back at him now, he kind of reminds me of like Shadow of that era, where he has like this dark past connected to the Robotniks. He broke free and now he's like a friend, but not a total buddy. I don't know. But he was kind of a ripoff of that monkey in Japanese folklore that rode on the cloud that they then based Goku off of.
Wukong.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I was gonna say,
so
he's kind of genetic, like you said. He's just the typical mythical creature that you just plopped in here with a plot. And I never heard anyone talk about this character, so I'm assuming most people forgot and moved on, right?
Yeah, and something Ken Penders will do is he'll just like straight up steal something and plop it in and not really change much of it. He did that famously with Skulder and Mully, which is basically Mulder and Scully. Like they look exactly like them, and they're FBI agents.
Perfect.
So this was an early case of him just like straight up taking something. He also has a character called Sleuth Doggy Dog, who's I think a detective dog who looks like Snoop Doggy Dog.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Oh my God.
But issue 56 will see the return of a character named Mammoth Mogul, who actually debuted in Mecha Madness. And Mammoth Mogul is Ixis Naugus' second in command. So while Ixis is the scheming wizard leading the Dark Egg Legion, Mammoth Mogul serves as his loyal enforcer, handling the heavy lifting and battlefield duties, while Ixis focuses on magic and strategy. And the issue ends with an epic battle between Mogul, Supersonic, Hyper Knuckles, and Turbo Tails before Mogul is sealed away in the Master Emerald. And I always wonder if he met Chaos while he was inside of that emerald. But I should note, Ixis Naugus is not a Ken Penders creation. It was actually a character who, and I don't recall if they actually did appear in Saturday Morning, but he definitely was intended to appear in Season 3. He was actually, I think, the glowing eyes at the end of the final Saturday Morning episode. That was never followed up on. And early show Bible stuff, like planned out before they finally settled on how the Saturday Morning comics or Saturday Morning series would be going, actually had much more of a sword and sorcery kind of background. I believe Robotnik would have been a wizard, as was other wizards, so there would have been a Nate Morgan and an Ixis Naugus and maybe a Mammoth Mogul. I don't know if he came from that, but these are kind of recycled ideas from the Saturday Morning cartoon series that they're bringing in to kind of fill in that hole left by Robotnik. So What do you think about that sort of storytelling, like recycling cutting room floor ideas from the cartoon?
I don't hate it. I think it's kind of cool. You could repurpose something that was meant for, this was based on the cartoon, so I like that. The idea that like Eggman's a wizard is kind of strange though, because he's like a scientist, right? I guess he's like Doctor Doom, I guess, where he is a magic wielding smart scientist that makes robots. It's like this oxymoron where I'm like, I guess it could work, but I don't know. What do you think about him being a wizard in the idea?
Well, yeah, so I think early on they did kind of play around with that. There is concept art of Robotnik almost having, like, I think green skin and a purple robe. And if you look behind me, you can kind of see that Robotnik concept art I bought. I actually have more in my little portfolio here. But they initially were like, oh, maybe he's a wizard. And then they're like, maybe he's a warlord and not a wizard. And then they brought in the mechanical side. And then they finally kind of scaled it back. And they're just like, he's basically like the Robotnik from the games. But we'll consider bringing wizards in like later on in season 3. And I think what they had envisioned was sort of a kind of expanding on the idea of nature versus technology, and having Sonic and friends be allies with human wizards fighting Robotnik, who was the like mechanical warlord. And I think that's cool, but I also think that's too many characters, so it makes sense that they would kind of drop the wizards that are helping Sonic.
Yeah.
But I do like that at this time they started to bring back those concepts, and they actually do run a very long time with these characters. If I'm correct, I think Ixis Nagas actually survived up until issue like 252. I could be wrong.
Damn.
So it's kind of wild that he was around that long. But yeah, so, even skimming through the old issues again, reading up again on the each issue's breakdown for the plot, I'll be honest, I was really lost. There's a lot of characters going on, a lot of lore being dumped on, like, even the casual readers. Like, it's a lot to keep up with, and it's kind of hard for me to like break it all down. But I'm going to try the best I can. But you can kind of see how, as a kid, you're taking all this in, and I think some kids might mistake complexity and an overabundance of characters as quality. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Lost, where people are like, oh man, Lost is the greatest show of all time. And it's like, why? And it's like, oh,
so much happens.
The mystery, man. So much happens. And it's like, was it ever resolved? And I think a major one that actually, me personally, I'm a huge fan of the X-Files. But as the series went on, they could never fully explain the conspiracy, otherwise the show ends. So they would make the conspiracy bigger and larger and more convoluted until you get to season 9, and you're just like, I think this is great. Is it? I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe it's great because it's so complex, or maybe it's not great because it's too complex. I'm not sure. And I think in this era, and we'll talk about issues 57 through 68 next, this is when I think the comic the comic and Ken Penders started to get a little too high on his own supply. Like, I think he was like, Robotnik's dead. I'm going to really just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And to be quite honest, looking back, I don't feel like a lot of it stuck, because this whole era is kind of murky to me. Like, I'm sure there's bigger Sonic fans who could sit down and do a podcast like this and really walk you all through every story beat. But how boring would that be? But yeah, let's continue on, and then we'll talk more about this era. But issues 57 through 68, the focus now is shifting to the rise of the Dark Egg Legion and Ixis Nagas really flexing his magical schemes across his magical muscle schemes, I guess, across Mobius. Sonic and the Freedom Fighters are juggling multiple threats, so there's remnants of Robotnik, new villains like Mammoth Mogul, and the occasional internal team conflicts. A lot of it actually coming from King Acorn. He's kind of an asshole, I think. This run mixes classic Sonic action with longer storylines. A lot of magical artifacts are introduced, a lot of world building. Much of these issues see Sonic and Tails adventuring around the world and encountering new and old friends and foes. Issue 64 will see the debut of the weirdest Sonic comic character ever, Nate Morgan, who is I believe, African-American little person. But
really?
He's, there is no Africa in...
oh, God, you're right.
In Sonic's world, so... I guess if we were going by, like, Sonic Unleashed, it would be, like, what, Missouri American? Or Missouri... You know what it would be? It would be Missouri... What would it be? Missouri, what's the America version in Sonic? Empire City. So it'd be Missouri Empire Cityan, I guess. But yeah, very odd. And he looks like Morgan Freeman.
That's what I was going to say right now. Did Nate Morgan, who is definitely not a copy of Morgan Freeman...
No.
Has he ever been like outside of the comic? Does he come back? Is he still in the IDW?
So Nate Morgan actually was a character in the early planning stages for the Saturday morning cartoon, and he was black in the concept art, but he was tall and gangly, and I think a little like kind of bohemian hipster hippie kind of hippy dippy. And I think they were really going for like the opposite to Robotnik. So it'd be like we have this fat white guy, and then we have this skinny black guy. One is mechanical, one is magical, And I think they were really doing these two complete opposites. And with Nate Morgan now, he's actually, I do believe, a former scientist who used to work with Robotnik. I could be wrong, but I do remember seeing flashbacks of them working together. But yeah, so
but like,
Nate Morgan...
Do you think that he made him a small person or smaller because he has to be next to Sonic and it would be weird to draw
I think you're right.
Okay, that's what
I think you're right, because they didn't want him constantly leaning over in the frame.
Right, that's what I assumed.
I mean, that's true. That's a really great point, because you imagine, like, every comic frame you have to have Nate Morgan sitting. It's like Gandalf in the Dwarfs
right.
and the Hobbit home, But yeah, so Nate Morgan was an overlander. That's what they call humans in the comics. An overlander scientist who developed the power rings. So he's actually the guy that made the rings. You were always saying, what is Sonic and the Secret Rings? Well, it's Nate Morgan, man. He's the one who did it.
He should have been in the game.
He should have, but after a disastrous experiment, he got exiled, and he went to Mobotropolis and befriended King Frederick Acorn and helped advance the kingdom's technology. So here he is, finally kind of fulfilling his role in the comics that he was originally planned to have in the Saturday morning cartoon. By issue 68, the stakes are clearer. The freedom fighters are under pressure. Alliances start to shift. Nagas' plans reveal just how dangerous a magical threat can be in a mostly tech-driven world. And the issues also give small character moments like Tails stepping up, Sally leading, and more of that classic Knuckles backstory through the crossovers with his ongoing series. But mostly, this whole arc of comics is about setting up the next major conflict, and it doesn't really resolve anything yet. But yeah, we'll get there. So the void left by Robotnik actually sets up a pretty interesting power struggle. It seems many rejected or unexplored concepts making their way into the comics. Did I just repeat myself? I feel like I did.
Did you?
No, I did. I feel... No, I don't think I did. You know what it is? I think this is just so samey with the comics.
I think that's what it is.
Did I really reread something? Or I don't think I did.
No, but
am I going crazy, George?
I think you're going crazy.
What comics are up on the screen right now?
57 through. Let me see. I was just looking at the covers. 69. Yeah.
Oh, 69?
68. Sorry, that's what I have on screen. I was looking at the Happy Birthday Sonic cover right now.
69 through 78. Oh
No,
man, I'm losing it.
I think you are 57 through 68. Sorry.
Okay, so here's the thing, and you can keep that in because this is a good signifier for how samey these comics get. I feel like I just read all of that before, and people listening or watching, go back and see if I actually did repeat myself, because if I didn't, then I am going crazy, because issues 69 through 78, let's just jump into those. It just keeps going, man. It's like, like it's more of it. So the Dark Egg Legion storyline continues. There's a lot of characters battling, changing allegiances. Sonic and the Freedom Fighters. What's that?
I was gonna say, does issue number 69 have that? What's that Sega Saturn game? Ezreal, I think.
Oh,
or what's it called?
Yeah, Astal.
Astal. There you go. I was like, yes, Astal, the launch game. Right, like the launch game for the Sega Saturn. Like, so they made the character part of the Sonic Archie comics.
No, so what it is Ken Penders like to sneak him into the covers.
Ah, okay. Why?
And like the game? He was because he loved the game. But yeah, so there you see issue 69. So okay, so here's the deal. So like, you can do the best you can in like bunching all these issues together into story arcs, but I feel like at this time it started to get a little samey. And I think what really threw me is you look at issue 69's cover and you look at issue 51's cover, and you don't need to jump between them the two, but it's a group of characters celebrating, right? Like it's very samey, and even the Astal characters in both of them. And then you get to issues 69 through 78, and the Dark Egg Legion storyline it's still going. We still have heroes and villains battling, a lot of characters being debuted or returning from older arcs. But there is a pretty big moment that happens finally. I think things start to actually get good again, even though I'm not sure how happy Ken Penders was with this development, and that is the revelation surrounding 8 mysterious satellites, which were slowly being revealed since issue 50. Like, what are these mysterious satellites? They're each doing different things, and there's also a mystery behind the potential return of Robotnik. What's this mean? So, spoiler alert. Well, Robotnik did die. Way back in issue 22, fans were introduced to an alternate universe where Robotnik roboticized himself in order to defeat the Freedom Fighters, and he became Robo-Robotnik. Robo-Robotnik now has crossed into the Prime reality and is wreaking havoc. So, and I also should mention in issue 71, Sega finally forced Archie to introduce the Sonic Adventure design of Sonic, and Archie did so through a issue that read backwards. You would have to read the issue from the end to the beginning.
Wow, that's some Grant Morrison writing.
Yeah, and Sonic actually ends up with green eyes and buckles on his shoes as a result of using the Super Emerald. So just go with it. And so, like, I'll admit, and I actually made a note here too, so this is getting kind of meta. Making notes for issues 57 through 74 was a slog. I always found this run of comics to be filled with too many characters and Penders plot points, but I feel like the return of Robotnik, in my opinion, was chef's kiss. And I'll get into why, but what do you think? I mean, you saw me have an existential crisis in this episode itself where I thought I reread the same page twice. On the notes.
I mean, I think with these kind of issues, especially when you don't have anything being given to you by Sonic Team, it gets hard. I kind of wish that he would be more like... I think the problem with Ken Penders, he's not very, like, interesting, probably. Like, the guy that... I mean, I forget the guy's name, but the guy that did Donald Duck was well-versed in, like,
Karl
reading,
Marx.
Yeah, like, reading... Karl Marx, the Marx... Okay.
No, Barks. Like, ruff, ruff.
Oh, got you. I was like, wow, you wrote the Donald Duck books too? This guy was busy.
Yeah.
communism and Donald Duck. But yeah, I was gonna say, I think bringing back Robotnik obviously was a good idea. He's an iconic villain. Killing him off for a while was good, but too many characters is something that I think kills a lot of things, especially media as it goes on. You want to add everybody.
Yeah.
But he does have a Knuckles series at the same time. So he's writing 2 series? Or how many series at this time?
So yeah, he's writing 2. I don't think he writes every story in every issue. There was Mike Gallagher, at least in the Mecha Madness one, as well as Kent Taylor. So there are other artists, doing their thing, and writers doing their thing. But yeah, I mean, you actually bring up a good point. Like, I'm looking here. Ken Penders is the writer of issue 43. Ken Penders is the writer of issue 44. So yeah, he's basically the main writer, and then he's also doing the Knuckles series. So I think
that's a lot of work.
I think he was just like a powerhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's crazy that these were coming out on time. There's a lot of delays in comics all the time, and I'm pretty sure this is one of those series that just kept pumping out. So there's always going to be a slog, when that happens.
I mean, I always say that you look at issue 0 of Archie Sonic through issue 79. Issue 0 released shortly after Sonic 2 and before Sonic 3 and Knuckles came out. Issue 79 released just months before Sonic Adventure released. So from 1993 through 1999, we had, basically the back half of the Mega Drive era, the entire drought of the Saturn era, and the beginning of the Dreamcast era. And that's actually a fair amount of games and plot points to cover. And then you look at IDW, issue 1 releases after Sonic Forces, and issue 79 releases, and we had, Frontiers release a few years ago?
Yeah. And we have that Sonic Racing game, whatever that could do. And we
have the Sonic Racing game, but the stories within the comics itself are still taking place after Sonic Forces. So it's like, not only is a lot happening within the comics, but a lot is happening within the Sonic franchise, within the Archie era. And I think Ken did his best to fill that drought that was the Saturn era. But if I'm completely honest, I feel like Ken liked having that drought because it let him flex his creative muscles and push a lot of the Sonic stuff to the side. Like, take note, if you reread these issues, you're never going to see like iconic zones coming up. It's not like, oh, in this issue they're going back to an 8-bit zone, like it really is like Knothole, Robotropolis, new places and new characters. Maybe Fang shows up or Knack shows up, but it's not as though Ken was really basking in the history of Sonic up to this point. He was really doing his own thing, and I'm sure we'll do a Sega talk on the Knuckles miniseries, but he was really upset when Sonic Adventure revealed that Knuckles was the only one on the island, and there weren't actually other echidnas. But let's talk about issue 75. So this is one that I've always kind of ignored as like, I haven't really revisited this one that much, but in doing these notes and rereading it, it's a big one. So Robotnik is back, and get this is how they do it, and I think it's perfection. It's so ridiculous, but it works for me. So Robotnik, Robo-Robotnik, has his robot consciousness, so just go with it, entering a new robot body, and that robot body is his modern Sonic Adventure design, and that's how they do it. What do you think of that? That
works. That's kind of like the Superior Spider-Man storyline that was stolen by Dan Slott later, where Dr. Octavius, whatever his name is, the octopus man.
Yeah.
Puts his conscience into Superman's body. How does it? But it's not the worst. I mean, do you even have to explain it? Can you just say this is a new guy from a different universe? I guess.
Well, eventually, what they do is he gets unroboticized and becomes a human. So there's that. And then when they do the reboot with issue 252, which is always ironic to me because New 52 for the DC universe was a big reboot. And so the fact that Sonic issue 252 was a big reboot, they reboot it so that he was always that human version of Sonic Adventure Eggman who in the past looked like Mega Drive Eggman. And I think that's the easiest way to take it in the Archie comics. I think IDW does it even better because in IDW the video games are the backstory and that's it. That works so well in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, up to this point at issue 75, the history of Robotnik is he was a dude who died, and then an alternate universe version of him who was a robot came to our universe, put his consciousness in a robot body that looks like his Sonic Adventure body. The Sonic Adventure body gets de-roboticized back into a human, and then that human exists up until the comics reboot and then make him essentially the video game version within the comics. And as I talk about it, I feel like the Always Sunny meme of with the board behind me,
Okay, a little complicated for kids, but I will say, once you put your conscience in a robot, why would you want to go back to human flesh and stuff? You'd be so fast, strong.
I don't know if it was his choice. I think there might have been something that happened that forced him to become a human. I'll have to relook at it. But what's funny too is there is a panel, and people can look it up, of all the alternate robot bodies that he doesn't pick, and one of them is rest in peace or rest in piss opinions vary on him, but Hulk Hogan. There's a Hulk Hogan Eggman.
Wow.
That he could have gone inside of and he didn't. He's got the underbite and the mustache.
At this point in history, the Hulk Hogan was a hero to America.
Yeah, you're like Tony Soprano. Hulk Hogan was a hero. He discovered America, and
I took my vitamins because of him. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Issue 76 is notable because my name is in the Find Your Name in Print page. So if you want to know what my last name is, you can look up that issue. Robotnik is also officially back. He's on the cover in his big Eggman design, so that's his coming out issue. Issue 77 sees the heroes returning to Knothole, and issue 78 sees Sonic being knighted, so he's now Sir Sonic the Hedgehog.
Finally, long overdue.
Finally, the Knight of the Wind. The Kingdom of Knothole is established. The Freedom Fighters are officially reinstated, and mysterious space vessels are approaching Earth. So by now, a lot has happened in the series, over 25 issues, but it really feels like this is kind of a soft reboot. It's almost like to the pre-issue 50 events where the Freedom Fighters are in Knothole, Robotnik is in Robotropolis, but Sonic looks like his Sonic Adventure design. Robotnik looks like his Sonic Adventure Eggman design. They start using the name Eggman. Various secondary heroes and villains are kind of out there if they need them. But, what are they building to? So let's show issue 79.
Uh-oh.
And as a kid, this issue, this was one of my most exciting covers. When I picked this issue up, I was so jazzed. And you can see why, because it has the Sonic Adventure logo on the cover. They're finally doing it. Issue 79 is the prelude to what would be the multi-issue Sonic Adventure adaptation, which at the time, we didn't know how they were going to do it. These comics are so weird and wild. Humans don't exist. The Master Emerald has a mammoth inside of it. What's going on? How are they going to adapt this thing? But in this issue, Nate Morgan discovers that Robotnik has found a hidden city of the ancients, which is actually the human world inside a volcano. So yes, Station Square was hidden inside a volcano, if you can believe that.
Wow, that makes complete sense when you say it like that.
Amy Rose, who has really been sidelined throughout the series, like she existed but wasn't in that many of the comics. Classic Amy makes her return, and she makes a wish on the Ring of Acorns and becomes modern Amy. So she didn't grow up. She actually just like made a wish.
Yeah, I was going to say. So like, they're like, how do we explain this? Well, of course, classic Amy is going to wish to be modern Amy, redesigned modern Amy for the video game. She knows that exists.
Right.
Okay. That's an explanation.
Robotnik, he cracks open the Black Emerald, and Chaos and the Spirit of Tikal emerge. So, to my knowledge, they're not in the Master Emerald at this point. They're in something called the Black Emerald. However, the Master Emerald does get shattered by Robotnik, and Mammoth Mogul is freed and lands in the ocean. So, essentially, they took a lot of existing plot points, and by they I mean Ken Penders, items, characters, and things like that, and they twisted them to lead into the Sonic Adventure plot. And to me, it's like, it's weird, it's sloppy. I know Ken never felt great about the execution of it. He famously talked about how SEGA never gave him like any information on the game, so he had to import the Japanese copy and like get it translated so he could work on this before the game came out officially in the US. But honestly, I thought it was a lot of fun reading how it happened. Like the fact that they were like, well, Chaos can't be inside the Master Emerald because there's a mammoth inside of it. So let's have them in this other emerald that we established. But let's shatter the Master Emerald because that's what happens in Sonic Adventure. So now Mammoth Mogul's free. Where are the humans? They're inside a volcano. You know,
Right.
It's like, how did Amy get a red dress? She didn't put it on. She made a magical wish.
So my issue here is like, imagine being a kid, right? And you're like, my dad's gonna buy me a Sega Dreamcast. I'll buy this tie-in to the game, never knowing anything about the comic. And then they're like trying to explain all these like things that happened like previous issues years ago, and being like, oh, there's a mammoth in the Chaos Emeralds. Everyone knows that. Like, no, we don't. Like, new readers for this issue wouldn't know that. And do you need to explain that stuff? I don't know. As a kid, if they just said Chaos was in the Emerald and never brought up the mammoth or anything, would you have known or cared?
Yeah, it is very odd because it's like they could have done one of two ways. They could have done a time jump, you know, and Amy just kind of grew up. Sonic just kind of grew up. Robotnik just put on some new clothes. They could have done that. That's what happened for us as kids. There was this transition period where Sonic at one point... I mean, to be honest, in my eyes as a kid, I never saw that he got green eyes. I more saw that we just got more detail of him. You know, it's kind of like... There's a famous... Well, it's not famous, but there's a Simpsons episode where Homer... Marge gets mad because Homer can't remember what color her eyes are. And, like, in the show, all their eyes are a little black. But when they zoom in on Marge's eye, you suddenly see a ring of brown. And it's like, oh, she has brown eyes. But we never see that because she's so far away. You know?
Right.
That's kind of in my kid brain. I was like, oh. But then when the comic came out, I'm like, oh, I guess he got green eyes from, like, magic. And it's like, oh, I guess Robotnik was a robot. He didn't put on new clothes. And I guess Amy didn't age. She made a wish.
The wish thing is kind of weird. It's like you could wish for anything and that's what you wish for? Okay, cool. A red dress. Okay. Like, is that what does she actually wish for? Like, the actual dialogue, it wasn't like... It obviously wasn't, can I be modern Amy? Like, obviously that's not what she said, right?
So Amy, I think she's jealous of Princess Sally. I think she sees herself as a little kid and Sonic's never really going to truly love her. And so Amy makes her way to this ring and makes a wish and grows up. I mean, if we're truly talking about video games that shows the transition, Sonic Pocket Adventure for the Neo Geo Pocket Color is where we see Robotnik change into the Sonic Adventure costume. Like, he literally is in one scene in the old one, and then the next scene he's in the new one, so he did change. Sonic has green eyes in that, but he's like his old pixel self, so it's like more detail. Sonic actually had... The weird thing is Sonic had buckles. It's just they didn't appear in the game sprite, but they were on the Japanese art. So to me, it was weird that they were like, oh, he now has magic buckles that appeared because of magic. And it's like... But he always had them. It's just the American art never included them. He could have just gotten new shoes. I don't know why it had to be magic. Anyway,
it has to be
having
magic.
said all that, it has to be magic. Having said all that, I actually liked all this. I thought it was goofy and weird, but it was fun. I liked seeing that transition to Sonic Adventure. It oddly worked. I think you shared your thoughts, but if you want to say anything else about this weird, sudden, like, U-turn to Sonic Adventure, what are your thoughts?
I think I'm surprised they didn't try to advertise it more, like a redesign. Like, literally just put in the cover, new designed characters or whatever. Like, they did do the issue where he was like going back in time, like you said, the backwards issue, which I think is a smart way of doing something new and fresh. But like, it wasn't like the main point where it literally says new design from the new game or whatever. I'm surprised they didn't do that, because they do that in DC Comics or whatever. Like, when they get a new suit, they kind of like do a press of, like, they do articles on the internet. They send out press releases. Oh, this character is gonna get a new suit, and everyone like judges it online. I'm surprised they didn't try to do that first. And it felt like they thought that they had to explain everything. Is kind of weird, but I guess it makes sense at the time. Because kids don't really care that much. It could just be like, literally, like, Sonic Team didn't explain it to us. They just literally just said, this is Sonic, and he has green eyes now, and he's skinny. That's it.
Right, exactly.
But
and we just bought it.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone would have just accepted it even in the comic, but I think Ken Penders was like, no, I'm doing high art, and I have to explain why they forced me to change whatever character, I guess.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, to sum up what we've covered, the 40 issues we've covered in this episode, it was a end of an era, really, the end of what they had established with issue 0 of Sonic versus this Saturday morning villain. It was the start of something new, dipping their toes into unexplored concepts from the cartoons with these wizards with Ixis Nagus and all those wild guys. It was Ken Penders really, I think, feeling a little more freedom with the comic after the death of Robotnik. And it was also Ken Penders feeling SEGA breathing down his neck and feeling a little animosity towards them. And I should say, when I read those interviews with him, and I think he gave them quite a long time ago, because I remember I was still maybe a teenager when I heard his thoughts behind how hard it was to adapt the story and how he didn't really like the process. For me, I was like, how could you not love that? You're adapting Sonic's first 3D adventure in a multi-issue arc, and it's like a chore for you. And to me, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it made me think, boy, this guy actually does want to tell weird Knuckles family storylines instead of adapting Sonic Adventure. And spoiler, they never adapted Sonic Adventure 2, or at least he didn't. He didn't want to.
That's kind of,
and
that
so Shadow, like,
the best one to do, I think, right?
Yeah, and you know, that's actually why I stopped buying the comics, because they were not adapting Sonic Adventure 2, and instead they were just doing more of this stuff that they've been doing post issue 50, where it's like weird stuff that didn't have anything to do with the game. So I was so confused. But
I do have a question
the next
for you.
time. And
I was going to say,
yeah, go ahead.
What's your top 3 moments in the issues we covered, if you had to like rank them?
That's a good question. Let me bring up, It's always easiest when I look at the covers. So let me look at the covers. I would say Mecha Madness is number 1. I would say number 2 is issue 50, the whole Endgame arc.
Right.
I would say third is probably the issue 75, the Robo-Robotnik making his grand return.
So you think
as Eggman.
So every end of the arc he hit it, but he would randomly have little. You would say, like when he hit his high points, he hit them well enough to make you appreciate some of the arcs. But he had some of these other things where he has to go. I guess maybe the one-off issues weren't as well done, in your opinion.
Maybe, yeah. I think there were just too many characters. It was like now we have Princess Sally's brother, and we have Nate Morgan, and we have all these wizards.
That's
and
ridiculous.
We have, like the King Acorn's back, but he's kind of an asshole, and
yeah,
But I will honestly say it's the cover art that kept me coming back. Like these covers are fantastic. Patrick Spaziente, who I haven't really been giving shout outs to, he did, I believe, every cover here. I'm not seeing one that he didn't do, and he even did art for some of the one shots, like the Mecha Madness. So on the inside cover art. So he's a great artist. So I would always get the latest issues from him. Having said that, if I'm going to say the worst covers, I would say issue 73. Like, I get what they're going for, but it's essentially Robo-Robotnik looking at a monitor of the freedom fighters, so it's distorted, and it's his hand slamming down, but you really have to look at it for a bit before you understand what's happening. I think that's the weakest one. But I also love the Sega Saturn cameos. Like, you see a Sega Saturn on issue 59 with Vertical and Horizontal fighting over a game. I think that was pretty funny. But yeah, so when we return, which we'll see, we're going to be talking about the Sonic Adventure adaptation and Archie Sonic making its entry into the 2000s. So I think that'll be a fun and interesting adventure. Would you ever want to do one of these, George? Or do you like the way I do them?
You mean like do
host.
a episode on host a Archie comic episode?
Yeah.
I would like to do one on the IDW one, or maybe even do a couple of the Sonic Universe. But I think that the Sonic Universe, doesn't it tie in directly to the main series, or is that its own thing?
It does, yeah, yeah. It was basically them giving spin-offs without actually like putting the characters' names on the covers.
I get you then.
I think it would be interesting to hear you talk about like some of the miniseries, like the Princess Sally miniseries or the Tales miniseries.
I think that could
cool.
work for an episode in the future for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so we actually don't have a next episode planned, so you get to pick that one. But we do have a Patreon memory. So if you support us on Patreon at any tier, you can have your memories read at the end of the episode. So here we have Daniel Andres, who says, "Oh man, it's been a minute since I've read or looked at these, something like 5 or 10 years now. I used to read these religiously at summer camp growing up back in the 2010s, but yeah, even so, to me, these are the best the Archie Sonic series has to offer, at least issue 50 is. Not saying that the series isn't worth reading or checking out after this point or anything like that. I'm just saying that this is where it goes from good to great. Plus, who could forget that Mecha Sonic and Mecha Knuckles fight? That was that was some sick stuff. The artwork for sure is unforgettable, sheerly amazing. Sheerly amazing. He did say sheerly. Okay. The whole plot line through, though, of how Sonic and AB became their modern versions was not needed. It's not bad inherently or anything, but just overall fairly strange. I read the Archie Sonic comic universe. It's a shame that now it's a forgotten relic of Sonic's past from SEGA." But you know what's not a relic, George?
What?
Sega Talk.
It's about relics,
Yay.
though.
Yeah. So if people want to, are they going to vote on the next episode? Are you going to do that on our Patreon?
Yes, if you guys go to patreon.com/segabits, you'll be able to vote on 4 ideas for the next episode. The weirder, the better, so I'll probably put 4 weird things that no one's going to expect. So the next episode should be very unexpected. You know, you shouldn't, well, maybe you'll guess it, but you'll see. See you guys next time on Sega Talk. Bye.
Bye.